What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. In this video, I'm going to be building a gaming PC featuring the new awesome 12th gen Core i9. Alongside an RTX 3070 Ti and some DDR5 memory, this system is truly bonkers. And in this video, I'll be running you through each and every one of the component choices, showing you how to put this system together from start right through to finish, before checking out the performance figures a bit later and diving into a legendary GeekaWhat montage. Let's jump into the video though, after a quick ad from today's video sponsor. Ebuyer is your one-stop shop for PC hardware and gaming gear here in the UK. With great deals on some of the latest tech you won't want to miss out. Check out the UK links to all components in this video below at Ebuyer. Plus, if you want to see more of me, take a look at their YouTube channel where I've been guest presenting a wide range of videos. From the latest tech to PC components and gear to supercharge your setup, check out Ebuyer using the very first links in the description below. Let's kick things off by installing as many components into the motherboard as possible, including the SSD, RAM, cooler and the CPU. The CPU is the main sort of beating heart of this system, and it's Intel's brand new Core i9 12900K. With some really great clock speeds that lead to fantastic single-threaded performance, Intel's brand new efficiency and performance cores, which provide a balance of multi-threaded workloads and fast single-threaded applications, they really are pretty groundbreaking. You can check out our full review in the card section now. We did a dedicated video on this. In essence, it's pretty perfect. The only thing really to criticise would be the power usage and the heat output. But don't worry, if you pair it up with a good cooler, we've found in real-world gaming testing to not really face too many issues. I'll be coupling this up with some lovely RAM from Corsair, Corsair's Dominator Platinum RGB DDR5. Corsair not only sent us the RAM, but also a chopping board to demonstrate this product's cutting-edge performance and a really fancy unboxing kit, all of which we covered in a recent video up here. I'll come back to the cooler and the SSD later, but first let's get these two components installed into the motherboard today. None other than ASUS's ROG Maximus Z690 Hero board. With all the features you could basically ever want from a motherboard, this thing ticks so many boxes. Arguably, the only thing it doesn't really do all that well is networking. You don't get any 10 gigabit Ethernet on the rear panel, but you do still get 2.5 gig. You get a built-in rear I/O shield and a feature set that is literally crammed. Now, installing your i9 processor is pretty easy, but it is a little bit different to both what AMD have on offer and also the 11th gen Intel lineup. So watch carefully if you've never installed one of these new 12th gen chips, which most people at this point won't have yet done. You still want to find the triangle on the processor, in the bottom left for us, nothing really has changed on that front, and then locate the corresponding triangle on your socket cover. I'm not quite sure what's going on. There's a gigabyte socket cover on the ASUS motherboard. Very sorry, ASUS. That's probably just sneaked its way in there from our launch coverage before actually pulling the socket backwards. This kind of opens in somewhat of a scissor motion, different to the last gen where it would pivot from the top. So unfold it like so, drop your CPU nice and carefully into place before securing it back down. The black plastic cover will pop straight off. We can keep that one safe, and then we can return the arm down, applying a bit of pressure, but not too much to the processor itself. We're then able to pick up our RAM or our memory and install this next. I've gone for a pretty simple 32 gigabyte kit. 16 is definitely a bottleneck nowadays, especially when it comes to the performance you'll find with 12th gen and a latest, say, RTX 3080 graphics card. But at the same time, I think 64 gigs is plain overkill and ludicrously expensive. Now, I know I said that DDR5 costs more than DDR4. It does, and that's a simple matter of fact. However, this stuff doesn't actually cost quite as much as I feared it might do. I really like Corsair's approach with this. Not only do you get that beautiful RGB strip up top, but it's also their Capellix technology, making it super bright. If you don't believe the marketing jargon, hold out later to the montage portion or even the B-roll on your screen now, and you'll see just how much these LEDs stand out over some of the other RGB parts, shall we say, in the system today. You see here, we've already got our RAM DIMMs clipped back. We only need to use the second and fourth DIMM slots, so nice and easily there, before actually sliding the RAM into place. Just a word of warning, DDR5 is different to DDR4. The notch isn't in the same place, so be careful. And just simply line the RAM up, slide it into place and drop it down. Right then, I think there's basically two more parts left to go. The cooler's going to be the more difficult of the two, so let's do our SSD first. Now, you'll find on modern motherboards that we get a lot of this kind of heatsink shielding. This helps to keep your SSD drives cool. It also makes the motherboard aesthetic that bit cleaner. For us today, I think we want to just take off this bottom M.2 slot, as it will be easier than messing about with any of this array over here. As a word of warning, these screws are actually very small, so you will need a small screwdriver, a teeny tiny screwdriver, as we'd often call it on the channel. Drop a comment below if you would be up for buying a GeekaWhat branded teeny tiny screwdriver. Maybe 2022 is the year that we bring out a custom GeekaWhat screwdriver. And we've got to do that now, haven't we? That's that's very exciting. Under our heatsink, we'll be installing the Seagate Firecuda 530. I actually forgot to actually mention the name of the SSD, and that's a shame, because the 530 is awesome. Online reviews all have pretty much the same sentiment. This is the best Gen 4 drive you can buy as far as speeds go. You will pay a bit more for it, but as far as I'm aware, Seagate's attitude with this is that if you want the best, you pay for the best, and that's where the 530 comes in. Now, to be clear, there are other cheaper Gen 4 drives out there that still deliver some really, really good read speeds, but the writes are often a bit lower, and that's where Seagate excel. 7 gigabytes a second read and write is awesome. Now, I got flamed as well in a recent video for criticising ASUS's plastic retention mount for the SSD. In this scenario, I've got to say it works perfectly. Spin it round, drive pops up, pop it down, lovely stuff. Works amazingly well. But I found under this top slot that it just didn't do it for me. Make sure that before you actually secure this heatsink cover, that you peel off the blue plastic strip, as that will obviously get in the way of the heat contact that we're trying to make, and then you can nice and easily secure this back into place. It will be a bit fiddly, so do be careful, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Once that's done, we can round things off with the cooler. Now, I've got to be honest with you, we haven't got a huge number of coolers currently in the office with LGA 1700 support. Corsair have sent over their new brackets for their H100i lineup, which we really appreciate, and so have Deepcool for this awesome tower air cooler. Now, the other reason I wanted to use the air cooler today was to demonstrate that actually these chips don't run quite as hot as some media and some outlets have tried to make out. Yes, they are warm compared to like a Ryzen 5, but with over 200 watts of TDP and potential power usage, that heat has got to go somewhere. For us, that means that a large air cooler and plenty of airflow in the case is the solution we're going to opt for. To install the cooler, pick yourself up a backplate. This comes included in the cooler's box, and here you'll find 4 of these silver posts peeking through. If you spin the motherboard around, amongst all of the fancy circuitry on the back, you'll find 4 holes. These are what you're going to pop the backplate through, a little something like this. Spin the motherboard around, popping it back on the box, make your life nice and easy, and then locate these 4 silver screws now popping through the board itself. You then want to grab these silver female to male screws, popping these on each corner, and then add in these metal brackets to either side. Secure these down with thumb screws, and then the cooler goes on top of those. Sounds a lot more complicated than it is, so hopefully our nice sequence of well-shot footage will show you in a bit more detail just how easy this actually is in practice. And with our cooler on, this is where the case comes into play. Now this right here is Lian Li's O11D Dynamic Mini. With support for a 360mm rad at the top, a 280 on the side and full-size ATX motherboards, it really does tick all of the boxes. But with a couple of twists, which I'll come to in just a moment. This is one of the most popular cases on the market, full stop, and for good reason. It looks incredible if you build the right kind of system inside of it. Let me get the case unboxed, then start installing the motherboard, and I'll be right back with you. In order to do this, you just want to first take off the top panel of the case. This will then allow us to start removing side panels and all that jazz. The reason we're going to do this is that stripping the case back makes it intrinsically, that was a big word for me, intrinsically a lot easier to deal with. Pop off the side panel from the glass side, that looks a little something like so. Then also go ahead and unscrew the rear non-tempered glass side panel as well. And I mean, heck, why not? Let's take the front panel off as well, considering this is unsecured. So leaving it in might make it fall out, and we don't want to do that. We're then able to actually go ahead and install the motherboard into the case. Now, as ever, you want to match up all the holes on the bottom of the motherboard with the standoffs in the chassis itself. Now, for us, given the unique design, we've only got 2 at the bottom, 2 across the middle, and 2 along the top. That's perfectly fine for us, and to make this process easier, I'm going to lay the case down flat. You've got no I/O shield on your motherboard either, it's just built in, so nothing to worry about there. Drop the board in, pop in those 6 screws, and that is basically all there is to it. Really easy, really nice, and you can see our case is looking very full already. Only minor issue I've found so far is just struggling to fit the fan on the cooler without it really sticking out. Even if it does stick out, I think the side panel will still close, or maybe I could pick up a low profile fan. But for now, we'll leave that. It looks good, and temperature-wise, it might not actually be too bad, as long as we load this up with as many fans and as much air pressure as possible. For now, though, it's time to install the graphics card. This right here is the RTX 3070 Ti. Now, in my defense, I did film a GTX build a little bit earlier, which you can check out on the channel, alongside lots of other builds at various price points with different themes. I was thinking maybe we could even do a Squid Game themed PC build with some spray paint. Maybe the boat has sailed on that one, but either way, for now we're going to install the GPU. This is the founder's card, as I say. Aesthetically, it looks awesome. You've got this cool kind of two-fan blower chamber style design, and I think it will work really well in the system. It isn't particularly massive, which obviously it could be in this case, but that does give us more room for all of the fans that I've been on about installing that are juicy RGB and will look great. The 3070 Ti is obviously very difficult to actually get your hands on, but it's a great GPU, and as supply starts to ease, something we discussed in a recent video, hopefully more people should be able to get their hands on one of these cards through either a normal sale, a pre-order, waiting list, or heck, even a Newegg lottery. I'm going to slide it into the top PCI slot on the motherboard. Lovely stuff. Let's go ahead, secure that down, pop the cover back on, and then we can wire it up in a moment when we take a look at the power supply. And for this build, I've chosen Cooler Master's SFX 850. You heard me right, SFX. What that means is that this is actually a smaller form factor unit, making it sizably more compact than a standard regular ATX unit. It is still fully modular though, meaning you only plug in the cables you need. And while today's video won't be a full cables and wiring guide, you can find one of those over on the channel. So let me go ahead and install this, then add on our fans. I'm thinking about maybe installing a set of Corsair QL white RGB fans. I think they'll fit really nicely with the theme, before going ahead and popping on all of those side panels. With that done, it's about time we boot the system up to see just how well it performs, but first of all, how good it looks in an awesome, glam, epic, lovely montage here on the channel. I'll see you in a second for those performance figures. Hold tight, but first, it's montage time. Nice. With the system looking great, it's now time to see just how well it performs. And kicking straight into the numbers, on your screen now is a summary of all the different games that we tested out. We'll be diving into some of these titles one by one in a moment, so if you're a big fan of any of these games, hold tight as we'll show you exactly the settings we used, all of the different toggles and settings. The first of those games we'll be looking at in more detail is GTA 5. Here at 1440p high settings, we got 147 frames per second on average. 90 and 99 percentiles were strong, and we tested this using Nvidia FrameView and MSI Afterburner's Riva Tuner in the game's inbuilt benchmarking mode. It was a similarly positive story in the brand new Call of Duty Vanguard. We tested this first with DLSS off and then with DLSS on. Disabling DLSS at 1440p high settings gave us 135 frames per second. In of itself, not a bad result, but I did wonder whether we could push it further using Nvidia's fancy AI-backed resolution scaler. Enabling DLSS added just shy of 50 frames per second to our average counter, moving us on up to 183 frames per second on average. 90 and 99 percentile results were strong, the game visually looked really great, and I was impressed with these performance metrics. Forza Horizon 5 is next up, and the successor to one of my favourite titles ever, Forza Horizon 4. At 4K ultra settings, we got just shy of 80 frames per second on average. This was around 35 frames lower than 1440p, but visually at 4K, I thought the game looked great. And in all honesty, 80 FPS is more than enough for a racing title like this one. Over 100 is just not required in these kind of titles. A title where over 100 frames is arguably required is Apex Legends, the next game on the list. Here at 1440p high settings, we managed to achieve 154 frames per second on average. Visually, the game looked absolutely marvellous. As you would expect from these kind of frame rates, it gave us a very lag-free, stutter-free experience. Moving on to Valorant next up then, and it's another game where frame rate wins out. Here at 1440p high settings, we got 372 frames per second. Wow. You would struggle to find a monitor with a higher refresh rate than these kind of frame rates in Valorant, even at 1440p. Moving on to Fortnite next up, and I wanted to see, just for giggles really, what would happen if we went for 1080p competitive settings with this new 12th gen i9 and a 3070 Ti. I'm glad to report that we got 325 FPS on average. That is insane. The game looked great even at these lower visual settings, and I was really, really impressed. Finally, the last game we tested out today was Call of Duty's Warzone. We've tried to test a massive variety of games to keep you guys catered for whatever you're interested in. Here at 1440p high settings, we got 128 frames per second on average. Wow. With 119 and 106 for the 90 and 99th percentiles. With that though, that pretty much wraps it up for this video. If you did enjoy it, make sure to get subscribed. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.